liberalism isn't bad, it's just no longer enough. There's more to do and more that's possible. I think the time we live in has only one way forward past the challenges we're facing, and that's an increased practice of liberation. I'll admit that I'm sometimes unhappy with liberalism. Not that it's not a good place or hasn't accomplished good things, or not that I haven't even identified with it for most of my life. But sometimes I just wish there was more. There was another place to go that was even better, that was more inclusive, more loving, more what I really want the world to be like. Tisa Wegner in this morning's reading said that as liberals, religious and otherwise, our commitments to social justice and human flourishing and ecological sustainability all have foundations in liberalism, as does our religion of Unitarian Universalism. And yet, at the same time, things aren't perfect. American liberals and liberalism are also historically complicit in racism and colonialism and imperialism, among other illiberal things. Nothing's perfect. But there are times when I find myself wanting more. More from my politics and my culture, and more from my religion. I want more than liberal. And more, I think, is extending liberal to liberation. How do we move from liberalism to liberationism? Classically, liberalism seeks to protect individual rights within existing institutions, including governments and religions. The rule of law, free markets, democratic governance are all liberal standards. The constitutional democracy revolutions made this the center of their project during the Enlightenment, as did the Protestant Reformation in breaking away from the Catholic Church in the world of religion. To ensure its functioning, liberalism has traditionally pursued legal reform, institutional checks and balances, one person, one vote electoral politics, and various free market mechanisms. Liberalism produced not only the American Constitution, but its copiers around the world. And not only did it produce the Protestant Reformation, it spurred on the radical Reformation of which Unitarian Universalism, our tradition, is a part. And 20th century liberalism gave birth to the merger of Unitarian and Universalism we now know as our Unitarian Universalist tradition. But liberationism goes beyond liberalism, and it does this by focusing on oppressed groups, challenging and seeking to transform oppressive systems, not just oppressive laws or practices. The emphasis on collective freedom and emancipation is central. The liberationist sees colonialism and racism and patriarchy and classism and capitalism as chief among these systemic oppressors. And those that struggle for transformative social change seek to dismantle all these long-standing entrenched human practices. Liberation's central methods tend to be grassroots organizing, social movements, direct action, intersectional critique. And whereas liberalism makes measured incremental changes to existing institutions, liberationism sometimes seeks and requires radical systemic realignment. Because liberalism has traditionally focused on negative liberty, freedom meaning freedom from any interference, both in individual rights and economic rights. So much so that unrestricted individual personal behavior and unrestricted economic behavior all too often become the champion standards, even though both can be incredibly problematic. An individual freedom that doesn't take into consideration the needs of others isn't really promoting a freedom. Economic freedoms that don't take into consideration the well-being of all aren't really talking about freedom. Liberationists see liberty as personal agency and collective agency, and focus on how to use our own moral agency as individuals and groups in seeking more participation, more inclusion, more equity. Liberationism's champion using agency to work in cooperation with others to dismantle power structures that focus on domination over others and practice cooperation with others. And I really think part of the challenge of our times right now is that we don't need any more liberalism. We need liberation. Liberalism isn't bad, it's just no longer enough. There's more to do and more that's possible. I think the time we live in has only one way forward past the challenges we're facing, and that's an increased practice of liberation. And I think the way we get to that place of liberation is through love. And I think that's why love has been placed at the center of our tradition in our recent realignment of our statement about who we are and what we're about as Unitarian Universalists. This replacing of our 7 principles with our values centered in love, I think, is really a strategic move on our part to move from liberalism to being a faith that's really about liberation. Liberalism and liberal religion produce champions of abolition, suffrage, and civil rights in the anti-war movements. But over the last half century, the world has seen increasing demands for real liberation movements, including liberation theology. And that theology's role, religion's role, is not to keep people free from dogma and free from religious control, but to actually remind people of their own individual freedom and agency, and to have them create the spirituality, the world, the community they really want. Love at the center of our faith, when we say love is the center of our values, isn't the love that's a heart on a Valentine card. It's deep, comprehensive, emotional, theological love with an incredible moral and ethical force. Over the winter, I read an essay about the commodification of love in capitalism and the power of love that isn't and cannot be commodified. And it got me thinking about the revolutionary change Unitarian Universalism has made from principles to values centered in love. In her essay in last winter's issue of the Jacobin magazine, titled The Political Economy of Love and Capitalism. I think I lost am I back on? No. There I think I've lost, no, I think I'm out again. I'm going to switch with this microphone over here. There's always forces in the world that don't want you to be free. They infiltrate your technology. They grab your microphone from you. They don't want liberation.
silencing the voices of freedom.
Kristen Godsey says, I propose that love involves at least 3 different distinct constituent components: attention, affection, and I love this one, reciprocal flow. And she says, all different forms of love involve some combination of all these components. And that got me thinking, theologically, especially in the Christian tradition, through its scriptures having been written in Greek, 3 types of love have been up front in theological discussion: erotic love, friendly love, and divine love. Eros, philios, and agape. With agape being the divine love, the forgiving, fortifying, encompassing goodwill toward all, even one's enemies. But Godsey says each of these types of love include attention, affection, and reciprocal flow. Each of these theological types of love have what we call in economics use value. What's the something about them that meets basic human needs? What are they useful for? And each have an exchange value. A price can be put on them in the marketplace. They can be bought and sold. Now, abusive, deceitful, domineering religion has found many ways over the years to even put a price on divine love. From buying indulgences in the Catholic Church to purchasing God's blessings from a televangelist. And Godsey says attention and affection always have exchange value. They can be bought and sold, but reciprocal flow is beyond exchange. It cannot be commodified. She says, understanding how and why capitalism diminishes our ability to give and receive love hinges on its simultaneous devaluation and exploitation of the lone use value that cannot be converted to currency. And yes, she comes at this from a Marxist economic point of view in her analysis. But I also think that liberalism in general and capitalism have become so intertwined you can't pull them apart. We even refer to it now as neoliberalism, right? Even when we acknowledge the positive aspects of liberalism, we have it now entwined with this capitalistic ethos that values profit and things over people. She says reciprocal flow cannot be commodified. It's a natural cycle of immediate giving and receiving. It's a generative, productive dynamic that exists in what we call the flow state. When you're in the zone. And I really like this description of love because this is the love I want at the center when we say love is at the center. Reciprocal flow has an exchange, but you can't keep track of it in a ledger. It's not tit for tat. It's instantaneous, immediate connection going back and forth like a current, that flow state. And because of that, it's priceless. You can't put a price on it at all. It's a circuit of mutual care, support, understanding, acceptance. It's what love is when it's centered. And Godsey gives examples of reciprocal love flow, but they seem to be done in such a surface way that I wanted to just go into a little expansion of them. She names long-term partnerships and relationships, parenting, listening to jazz music, dancing. These are states of love and reciprocal flow, this immediate exchange that you can't really put a price on. But I want to invite you into this a little more deeply by adding some of my own examples. So what it got me thinking of is think of when you lose track of time, okay? Something as simple as when you have an amazing conversation with someone. You're hanging out. You're having dinner with friends. Or you're chatting over coffee or a beer with someone. And all of a sudden, it's hours after the last time you noticed what time it was. Can you all relate to having this experience? This is, I think, what she's getting at with reciprocal flow. We are engaged in that kind of exchange where we're just happening, syncing, meeting with the other in a real completely equal and mutually accepted ground of being in place. Think of having gone to a concert. Music does this to us. I've seen Bruce Springsteen 14 times. At least half of those he played for more than 4 hours. It seemed like 10 minutes each time. That's reciprocal flow. Have you ever been to a concert like that? Have you been to an art gallery or a museum and been so affected by the sculpture or the painting or the fabric art that you saw that all of a sudden you noticed you were really hungry because you've been there 3 hours past your lunchtime? You're in reciprocal flow with a creation, an artwork. Have you ever read a book and realized you've been reading it for 3 hours and you're almost finished? Book that's that good? Have you done that? That's the reciprocal flow with a piece of creative work. You can't put it down. You can't step away from it. This is reciprocal flow in the love of beauty and creativity, connecting with the artwork itself and with the artist who made it. This is why fascists always target the arts. Because they want to stop your experience like that. Because that's reciprocal flow. They can't buy it. They can't put a price on it. They can't restrict it. They then can't control. That's why all authoritarian regimes hate the arts. Because you can commodify an artwork. You can commodify a record or an MP3 file, a piece of pottery or a novel or a book of poems. But you cannot commodify or put a price on the experience of encountering the music or the painting or the dance or the words. It's priceless, deep and totally engaging, reciprocal flow. Love as the energy of reciprocal flow. Our current political system hates reciprocal flow and opposes it at every opportunity. There's no profit margin in reciprocal flow. There's no way to control people in reciprocal flow. No way to make it scarce and drive its price up. The only tactic left is to keep all of us scrambling to survive, make it hard enough to go about our daily life that we have no time left for love, for the reciprocal flow. And Godsey says, worse is that highly individualistic societies teach us to fear reciprocal flow, using the angle that when we're in that state, others might take advantage of us. Reciprocal flow requires an investment of time and energy and proximity. You got to be close to a person or an artwork or something to be in that flow state. Why do we keep promoting online engagement to such an extent? Because it keeps us not close to each other when we can't enter into reciprocal flow. And I get thinking about this, and I think this is one of the reasons why I find Donald Trump, as problematic as he is, as so pitiable. I can't imagine this person engaging in reciprocal flow with anyone or anything, save perhaps his own reflection. He's a gross, extreme example of the absence of reciprocal flow. When love is so not at the center, it's so far flung you don't even know it's there at all. Can't be found. He constantly seeks to buy attention and affection. No cult leader survives without attention and feeling, even if it's not true, the affection of others. And as dangerous as someone like him is, he's also pitiable. To not be in a place where you can access that kind of love, that kind of reciprocal flow from others, has to be the loneliest, most painful place in the world. Trauma prevents us from reciprocal flow. War does, violence does, abuse does. And I think this is where our faith comes in. Why practicing loving community is so vitally important. Because it's all about reciprocal flow. That's all it is. That's all it's supposed to be. It brings back time and presence, the things you need to enter that flow state with others. It generates the field in which that circuit of relationship is immediate and deep and priceless. Godsey says in her essay, we need a new politics of love. And I would say we need a new religion of love. And how convenient that our tradition of Unitarian Universalism has recently said, you know what? Our new thing is these values centered in love. What great timing. One that actively resists the logics of accumulation and profit through a renewed embrace of joy, compassion, connection, solidarity. We must fight for a new world where we all have the resources to share time and proximity, the time and proximity required to enjoy the naive, simple, unsophisticated pleasures of the natural cycle of that circuit of energy of giving and receiving in each other's company, in relationship with each other. Love at the center is reciprocal flow. It's the flow that surfaces in loving community. What does the step into liberation and liberating love look like? I've encountered 3 examples in recent months that I like to point out as kind of illustrating this. And the first comes from my increasing involvement with the activist and organizing community around immigration issues. Every immigration organizing space I've experienced in the last 6 months has made a pointed note, and we even did this on Friday when he had a training here, we did it again, a pointed note that there is no such thing as a safe place. And that, in fact, the need for, and even the description of a space as safe is a white supremacy construct. When people are welcomed into Danbury Unites for Immigrants organizing community, this is shared with them. And we shared it on Friday when we did a training on a rapid response to ICE here. Together, we will create a brave space because there's no such thing as a safe space. People getting kidnapped off the street by your own government, there's no such thing as a safe space. But there's a brave space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and we all have caused wounds. In the brave space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify the voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and more love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. This effort will not be perfect. It will not always be what we want it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. That is said at all the organizing meetings of Danbury Unites for Immigrants. It's a covenant. In our language, we would say that's their covenant, that's their mission, That's the love at the center. Here, we will generate love reciprocal flow. When we recite our mission and covenant every Sunday morning like we did today, we create a brave space. I wonder if we should just start naming that too. A brave space is a space of reciprocal flow of love. And love is never perfect. It's always giving and taking and growing and learning and failing and trying again and getting better. Another example I've run into in the last 6 months is at the congregation in Danbury, where I also serve. They have not had a congregational president for almost a year since their last congregational meeting. At first, it caused a lot of uneasiness. I loved it. Not for the uneasiness, but because it was a better example of what we say we're really about in Unitarian Universalism. It's more lateral, it's more collaborative, it's more sharing, it's more having to work out an ongoing relationship all the time. Who's going to do what? Who's going to be responsible for what? How are we going to take care of each other? It's an ongoing reciprocal flow conversation. And I got to say, I've noticed no downside to not having a congregational president. The board members have taken turns organizing meetings, making agendas, sending out minutes, talking to other people, representing the congregation and the board at congregational and public events. I was a little concerned that we'd be able to pull it off, but as time has gone on, it's been amazing. It's allowed us as a working team to be a team more, to enter reciprocal flow more often, to make more relational our work, focusing on how we work with each other as being equally as important, if not more important, than the things we needed to accomplish. I don't know where it's going to go, but I've loved the experiment. This is what it's all about, this love at the center, reciprocal flow. You know, and another place I've seen it in recent months with the current situation we're all living under, and as an ordained religious person, even though I don't deal with it as much, my wife deals with it a lot, is with people criticizing us as religious leaders for politicizing religion. There's no such thing as non-political religion. Nothing at all. When I hear people say religion shouldn't be political, what I hear is that love should not be available to everyone without price or purchase. What I hear is that only the privileged should be allowed the time, space, security, and freedom to engage in the reciprocal flow of deep, committed human relationships with other people. That love, the love of God, the divine love, the love of the spirit of life, however you name it, the love of others in community, the love of another person. When I hear religion shouldn't be political, what I hear is that love shouldn't be freely available to everyone. What I hear is that although it's okay to have a liberal theology, once that theology truly seeks and advocates and fights for liberation, it's a threat. God loves everyone is a great liberal idea until you add the no exceptions. And then it's liberationist and dangerous. There is a liberation theologian, a bishop, a Catholic bishop in South America, Dom Helder Camara. He's got a famous statement he's been known for that says, "When I give food to the poor, they call me a saint. When I ask why the poor have no food, they call me a communist." We have not put love at the center of Unitarian Universalism because we're a liberal faith. We have put love at the center of Unitarian Universalism because we want us to become a liberationist faith. Centering love means centering brave space, inviting each other into reciprocal flow, and truly practicing what we call here loving community.
Check out my website and blog at tonylorenzen.com for even more resources that will open your mind, touch your heart, and inspire your spirit.